Welcome back to BuzzOwl 9, your source for societal, celebrity, and sports commentary. Today's report takes us deep into Minnesota, where a single viral video, a simple clip of a daycare sign spelled Learning Center, unraveled into one of the most explosive fraud investigations in modern American history. What began as a moment of online curiosity quickly evolved into a story about money, power, politics, and a state system pushed to its breaking point. The story opens quietly. A YouTuber filmed a childcare center in Minneapolis. The sign is misspelled. The building looks deserted, and there are no children, no teachers, no movement. The video spreads, and within days the sign is corrected, but the questions aren't. That empty building becomes the first breadcrumb leading investigators toward what federal prosecutors later describe as the largest pandemic fraud scheme in the country. As the investigation widens, the first major scandal to surface is the Feeding Our Future case. The nonprofit was supposed to feed thousands of low-income children during the pandemic. Instead, prosecutors allege that the organization and its partners billed the government for meals that were never served, in some cases claiming to feed 18,000 children a month from restaurants barely the size of a walk-in closet. The total alleged theft, $250 million. The money, investigators say, flowed into luxury cars, overseas real estate, and personal enrichment. But the most alarming discovery wasn't the fraud itself, it was the system that enabled it. Minnesota's welfare infrastructure operated on what critics call a pay-and-chase model: pay first, verify later. That approach, according to federal reports, turned the state into an open ATM, attracting what some investigators describe as fraud tourism, where criminal rings traveled to Minnesota specifically because the system was easy to exploit. Once investigators understood the pattern, they realized the food program scandal was only one branch of a much larger tree. Similar schemes were allegedly operating across multiple social service programs. Daycare centers were billing the state for ghost children, hundreds of fabricated identities used to collect millions. Home health agencies allegedly recruited healthy adults, paid them kickbacks, and billed Medicaid for services never provided. Homeless housing nonprofits requested exponentially increasing funds, allegedly using the money to build private real estate portfolios. Autism treatment clinics reported diagnosis rates that defied medical science, billing the state for intensive therapy sessions that never occurred. As these allegations surfaced, the political temperature rose sharply. Representative Ilhan Omar, whose district includes many of the accused, condemned the federal presence as unprecedented overreach designed to intimidate her community. Critics countered that individuals connected to her political circle had already been implicated in earlier fraud cases. Her exchanges with reporters grew tense, including one moment where she dismissed a question about a multi-billion-dollar fraud estimate by telling the journalist their brain had been fried. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump framed the situation as a national security threat and a catastrophic failure of state leadership. He promised aggressive prosecution, created a DOJ strike force, and suspended thousands of SBA loans tied to suspected fraud. His rhetoric escalated the conflict, clashing directly with Minnesota's leadership. Governor Tim Walz argued that the federal crackdown was rooted in racial animus, saying white supremacy is no longer being hidden. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey demanded that federal agents get the out of Minneapolis, insisting their presence was destabilizing the city. The Department of Justice, in turn, reportedly began investigating both officials for obstructing federal operations. The tension intensified when Assistant Attorney General Hamit Dillon announced that the federal government was exploring charges under the FACE Act and even the Ku Klux Klan Act, powerful laws historically used to protect civil rights against protesters who disrupted church services during demonstrations. Her statements signaled that the federal response would be long-term, aggressive, and legally expansive. Media figures became part of the story as well. Journalist Don Lemon, covering a protest inside a church, defended the demonstrators' right to protest. Federal officials countered that journalism was not a shield from participating in a conspiracy. Lemon insisted he was simply reporting. But the moment became a flashpoint in the debate over press freedom and protest rights. Amid the political and media storm, the allegations against specific individuals grew increasingly dramatic. Partisan online channels claimed that Nimco Ali Hassan, who operated several childcare centers, was running a fraud and money laundering hub. A raid allegedly uncovered tens of millions in cash and hundreds of kilograms of narcotics marked with cartel insignia. Other channels accused Judge Khalif Nuram and attorney Hoden Elanu of overseeing an $18 billion identity-based fraud and drug pipeline, claims that, while unverified, spread rapidly and shaped public perception. In response to the escalating allegations, federal agencies launched Operation Scorched Earth and Operation Metro Surge, sweeping multi-state crackdowns aimed at seizing assets, freezing accounts, and dismantling alleged criminal networks. The stated goal was total asset recovery, clawing back every cent. As officials put it, a new one-strike policy threatened deportation for any immigrant convicted of fraud, even those with legal status. And that brings us to the present moment, a state caught between two competing narratives. One frames the situation as a necessary federal intervention to dismantle organized crime networks that exploited systemic weaknesses. The other sees a politically motivated campaign targeting an immigrant community and weaponizing law enforcement for ideological ends. What began with a misspelled sign has become a national flashpoint, a collision of fraud allegations, political power, community fear, and questions about the integrity of the systems meant to protect the vulnerable. The investigations continue, the political fallout deepens, and the story of Minnesota's fraud crisis is far from over. You've been tuning in to Buzz Owl 9, where we break down the stories shaping our society with clarity, context, and calm analysis. Like, share this video and select the next video.